Imagine for a second that you have achieved basically everything you've ever wanted. Like you possess every ounce of wealth on the planet.
Right, the highest imaginable status.
Exactly. The largest estate, the ultimate authority, every single metric of success that our modern culture tells us to chase, you have caught.
But there is a catch.
There is a huge catch. You are the absolute last human being left on Earth.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Suddenly, all of that power, all of that wealth, all of that quote-unquote success means absolutely nothing. It just, it evaporates. And why? Because according to a philosophy that dates back thousands of years, there is literally no you without an us.
It is, it's a really profound thought experiment, and it cuts right to the heart of a crisis we are all feeling right now. I mean, if you look around at the year 2026, there's this pervasive, heavy sense of fracture.
Yeah,
The very systems that are supposed to organize and connect us, our politics, our economy, civic life, they feel like the exact mechanisms tearing us apart.
Tearing us apart, yeah.
And we spend so much time diagnosing the symptoms of this extreme division, but we rarely step back to examine the philosophical foundation that might actually provide a cure.
Which is exactly our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we are exploring a really compelling essay by John Novick Jr. It's part of his ongoing America Actually series.
Right.
And he titled this piece brilliantly, I might add, Desmond Tutu Knows What's Up, Ubuntu in America.
Right.
We're going to unpack this central concept, which is an ancient South African philosophy with no direct English translation, and figure out how it might serve as the perfect lens to diagnose our modern American condition.
And more importantly, look at what the treatment could be. Taking a philosophy forged in the fires of, one of history's most oppressive regimes and applying it directly to our current American moment is a massive intellectual undertaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Novick grounds his entire argument in the wisdom of a figure whose historical and moral weight is virtually unparalleled, Desmond Tutu. And by doing that, he really forces us to confront how deeply our modern Western obsession with the individual has, blinded us to the reality of how human beings actually function.
So let's start by defining that untranslatable word at the center of all this. The word is Ubuntu, pronounced Ubuntu.
Ubuntu.
Novick explains that it's an ancient South African word that roughly translates to humanity to others. But a direct translation doesn't really do it justice, right? The phrase that best captures the core definition is this: I am what I am because of who we all are.
Just letting that phrase sink in reveals a radical departure from how we operate day to day. I am what I am because of who we all are. It completely flips the script on the Western idea of the self-made individual.
It really does. And Novick makes a point of highlighting that there is no equivalent word in English, which, that says a lot about our culture. When I was reading through the sources, I kept trying to visualize this gap in our language.
It's hard to grasp.
It is. It's essentially like trying to explain the concept of an ocean to someone whose language only has a word for a water drop.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because in English and in modern American culture, we focus intensely on the drop. We measure the drop. We celebrate the drop's personal achievements. We worry about the drop's individual rights. But Ubuntu is the entire ocean.
The whole ecosystem.
Exactly. It recognizes the drop, sure, but it emphasizes the water that surrounds it, the currents that move it, the context that gives it meaning.
In that ocean analogy perfectly illustrates why Desmond Tutu became the ultimate global champion of this concept. Tutu was a South African religious leader, an activist, and just a towering figure in the fight for civil rights.
Right.
Novick leverages Tutu's legacy to give this concept immense practical weight. Because Tutu didn't just preach Ubuntu from, a comfortable academic distance. He literally weaponized it against apartheid.
And for context for you listening, apartheid wasn't just some casual form of prejudice. It was a brutal, legally mandated system of racial segregation and white minority rule.
It was horrific.
It was the ultimate state-sponsored effort to keep the water drops entirely separated.
Precisely. The entire architecture of apartheid was built on the lie that human beings can be isolated, categorized, and treated as fundamentally unequal without destroying the fabric of society. And Desmond Tutu fought that deeply armed, heavily fortified system, not just with political maneuvering, but with the philosophical mandate of Ubuntu.
which is just incredible.
It is. The mechanism of his resistance was pointing out the shared fate of the oppressor and the oppressed. Under Ubuntu, if you dehumanize someone else, you are actively degrading your own humanity. You are poisoning the very ocean you swim in.
That reframes the struggle completely. Like, it's not just a fight for the rights of the oppressed, it's a fight to save the soul of the oppressor too.
Exactly. And that radical approach to interconnectedness is what dismantled the moral authority of segregation. It's why Tutu's impact resonated globally, long after apartheid fell. I mean, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1984,
Wow.
the Gandhi Peace Prize in 2005,
Yeah.
and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009. We're looking at a trifecta of the highest honors humanity can bestow for peace and human rights.
Yeah. That's a resume.
Right. So when a man with that resume says, this is how human beings are fundamentally wired to operate, we really need to lean in and listen.
Which begs a practical question, right? What does operating like that actually look like on a random Tuesday afternoon?
Yeah. In practice.
Novik includes this incredible quote from Tutu that breaks down the day-to-day anatomy of Ubuntu. Tutu said, and I quote, "A person with Ubuntu is open and available to others, affirming of others, does not feel threatened that others are able and good, for they possess a proper self-assurance that comes from knowing that they too belong to a greater whole, and they are diminished when others are humiliated or diminished."
This requires a massive psychological shift. Tutu is describing the leap from a zero-sum mindset to an abundance mindset.
Right, the abundance mindset.
Because right now, so much of our economy and our social structure operates on zero-sum logic. Like, if someone else wins, it means I inherently lose. If someone else is getting praise for being able and good, my status drops. But Tutu argues that under Ubuntu, you do not feel threatened by the brilliance or success of the people around you.
Okay, I have to push back here on behalf of anyone listening who works in a competitive environment.
Fair enough.
Because the natural reflex to hearing be open, available, and affirming is just deep skepticism. I mean, we live in a society that grades on a curve.
We do.
We fight for limited promotions, market share, attention. If I spend my whole career just being affirming, celebrating my coworkers, not viewing them as competition, aren't I just going to get walked all over? Like, in the year 2026, doesn't unmitigated kindness just get you left behind?
It is the defining anxiety of modern life, and it's a completely understandable reaction. But if we dig into the nuance of Novik's essay, he dismantles that exact fear.
Okay.
Ubuntu is not a mandate to be a doormat. It does not demand that you ignore your own talents or abandon your ambition. Look closely at the phrase Tutu uses, proper self-assurance.
Right, proper self-assurance. So it actually requires confidence.
A deep, unshakable confidence. Living with Ubuntu means trusting inherently in your own unique gifts. You still have skills, you still have intense drive. What changes is the motivation behind the drive.
Interesting.
You recognize that you possess these unique gifts so that you can offer them up for the greater good of the whole. You don't have to ruthlessly pull someone else down to validate your own worth. Your worth is a fixed constant because you belong to the whole.
Which really illuminates the second half of Tutu's quote, that you are diminished when others are humiliated or diminished.
Exactly.
If we really are an interconnected ecosystem, then pulling someone else down to get ahead is quite literally a form of self-sabotage.
It fractures the network that you personally rely on to thrive. Novik argues that affirming those around you isn't just about being a pleasant person. It is the fundamental, non-negotiable requirement for a healthy, sustainable life.
You just can't build a joyful existence on top of the humiliation of your neighbors.
No, and that holds true for individuals, for local communities, and, well, as Novik points out, for entire nations.
So if my success, my security, my joy actually require the well-being of the people around me, then the whole American myth of the self-made individual starts to look incredibly fragile.
Oh, completely.
Novik tackles this head-on. He brings us back to the premise of the thought experiment we opened with. He states absolutely that you alone, in total isolation, cannot be enough.
He just shatters the illusion of the rugged individual pulling themselves up by their bootstraps. We like to think of success as a solo endeavor, but Novik exposes how utterly dependent we are on the social fabric. Think about the CEO who credits their success entirely to their own grit. The very mechanism of their success requires public infrastructure, an educated workforce, a legal system to enforce contracts, a consumer base with disposable income.
Exactly. Which brings us back to that billionaire alone on the planet. Novik makes the point that we create each other and we define each other. All of the concepts we chase, power, status, wealth, they are entirely relational.
They don't exist in a vacuum.
Right. There's no such thing as being powerful in a vacuum. You can only be powerful in relation to other people. As Noah bluntly writes, there is literally no you without us. Every ounce of success you achieve is a direct, undeniable result of your belonging to something bigger than just yourself.
So true.
So question for you. If every achievement I have ever had was facilitated by the existence and participation of the broader community, how does that reframe ambition? Does it mean ambition itself needs to be rooted in gratitude rather than just ego?
That is the logical conclusion that Novick is driving us toward. Because we are defined by the whole, we are obligated to act and speak with a profound sense of responsibility and, yes, gratitude. We have to recognize that we are who we are because of everyone else, and therefore our actions must be for everyone else. Ego-driven ambition tries to separate from the whole, to climb on top of it. Ubuntu-driven ambition seeks to elevate the whole, knowing a rising tide lifts all boats.
Now, Novick pulls no punches here. He takes this ancient, deeply beautiful philosophy, and he points it squarely at the messy reality of modern American politics. The title is Desmond Tutu Knows What's Up, Ubuntu in America.
Right.
But before we map out his specific diagnosis of the American condition, we need to be totally transparent with you listening.
Yes, this is important. As your guides through this deep dive, it is crucial that we frame this next section clearly. We are about to dive into the author's specific political, corporate, and social critiques.
Right. And our goal today is not to take a political side.
Right.
And we are absolutely not endorsing these specific viewpoints ourselves.
Exactly. We are impartially reporting John Novick Jr.'s views exactly as they are written in the source material. We want to stress test how he applies this overarching philosophy of Ubuntu to the extreme roadblocks of the year 2026.
Perfectly said. Our job is just to give you the mechanics of his argument so you can analyze it for yourself. So, looking at his diagnosis, Novick states flatly that America will never fulfill its core promise as a nation unless we regain our capacity to look beyond our own self-interest and recognize our shared humanity.
And he identifies three very specific roadblocks that are actively preventing us from building a sustainable, beautiful life for future generations.
Okay, what are they?
The first roadblock is corporate consolidation and domination.
Okay.
The second roadblock is Make America Great, again, style misinformation and brutality.
Right.
And the third is apathetic or cynical disengagement from the democratic process.
On the surface, those look like three entirely different problems. I mean, you have the corporate extreme where wealth and market power consolidate at the very top. You have a very specific political extreme, characterized by the author as Make America Great Again style misinformation and brutality. And then you have the extreme of apathy, people just throwing their hands up and tuning out. But Novick groups them together for a very specific reason, right?
He groups them together because, through the lens of Ubuntu, all three of these extremes share the exact same philosophical root cause.
Which is?
They are all symptoms of forgetting the whole. They all represent a fundamental break in interconnectedness.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of how that actually works, starting with the first one. How does corporate consolidation fundamentally break Ubuntu?
Well, corporate consolidation, when taken to the extreme Novick describes, is the ultimate manifestation of the zero-sum mindset. It operates on extraction.
Extraction, okay.
The mechanism here is a corporation hoarding resources, stifling competition, and prioritizing the extreme wealth of a few drops at the massive expense of the broader ocean.
Going back to the ocean analogy, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When a corporate entity extracts labor and consumer wealth from society without feeling a reciprocal sense of gratitude or responsibility to the communities that sustain it, it is operating in total opposition to Ubuntu. It denies that its success is dependent on the well-being of the whole.
Which leads right into his second roadblock. Make America Great Against style misinformation and brutality. If Ubuntu is about recognizing that we are what we are because of each other, how does this specific political extreme fracture that bond?
According to the framework in Novick's essay, this roadblock attacks the bond on two fronts. First, misinformation systematically destroys the shared reality that a community requires to function.
Right, you can't connect if you don't agree on reality.
Exactly. You cannot be connected to your neighbors if you are actively being fed lies that manipulate you into fearing them.
And the second front?
Second, the reliance on brutality, whether that is physical, verbal, or systemic cruelty, is the direct antithesis of Desmond Tutu's mandate to be affirming of others.
Because under Ubuntu, you are supposed to feel diminished when others are humiliated.
Right. A political style that gains its momentum by humiliating opponents, bullying vulnerable groups, or treating neighbors as enemies is entirely incompatible with the belief that I am what I am because of who we all are. It is a philosophy of separation, actively demanding that you view other human beings as less than yourself.
Which brings us to the third extreme, and honestly the one that might be the most insidious because it feels so passive.
Apathy.
Right. Apathetic or cynical disengagement. If you are burned out by corporate greed and political brutality, checking out feels like a safe, morally neutral option. You aren't consolidating power, you aren't spreading misinformation, you just aren't participating. How does Novick argue that apathy is a roadblock?
Because checking out is still a rejection of the whole. It is a refusal to participate in the ecosystem. Remember when we talked about proper self-assurance?
The idea that you have unique gifts and talents that the world actually needs.
Yes. When you withdraw from the democratic process or from civic life out of cynicism, you are denying the community those gifts. You are isolating yourself into a corner.
And as he established earlier, you alone, in isolation, cannot be enough.
Apathy is fundamentally a refusal to take responsibility for the shared humanity that sustains you. When you say, it's all broken, I don't care, you are allowing the drops to evaporate while the ocean dries up. It starves the community of the very energy required to heal the fracture.
So if corporate extraction, political brutality, and civic apathy are the forces pulling us apart, what is the alternative vision? Like, what does a 2026 America rooted in Ubuntu actually look like, according to Novick?
Novick argues that a future rooted in Ubuntu requires a very specific set of core beliefs to be reestablished. We have to genuinely believe that we all matter to one another.
Okay.
We have to believe that every single person has the capacity to contribute to a brighter future. And crucially, he writes, we must believe that there is plenty for all.
The abundance mindset. The total rejection of the zero-sum game.
Yes. It is the realization that uplifting your neighbor does not diminish your own standing. In a society operating on Ubuntu, the success, safety, and joy of your community become your success, safety, and joy because your identities and futures are inextricably linked.
It changes everything.
It changes how you vote, how you spend money, how you speak to the person in front of you in line at the grocery store.
It is a profound structural shift in perspective.
Hmm?
And as we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to summarize the ultimate takeaway for you listening. What Desmond Tutu proved with his life, what John Novick Jr. is urging us to remember in this essay, is that true power and true security do not come from isolating yourself at the top of a pyramid.
No, they don't.
They don't come from hoarding wealth, humiliating your rivals, or retreating into a bunker of cynical apathy. The only sustainable path forward is embracing the absolute truth that I am what I am because of who we all are.
It is a vital reminder that we are the ocean, not just a chaotic collection of competing water drops. When the ocean is poisoned by division, every single drop suffers the consequences. But when the ocean is healthy, when it is affirmed and cared for, every drop thrives.
And that leaves us with a final unscripted thought for you to mull over as you step back out into the world. We spent a lot of time talking about politics and economics today, but think about the spaces where we actually spend the majority of our waking hours.
The digital spaces.
Exactly, our modern digital spaces. If our very identities are forged by the people around us, how might the design of our social media platforms, where algorithms are explicitly programmed to prioritize outrage, division, and public humiliation because that's what drives engagement, how might those digital environments be secretly rewiring our brains to forget our Ubuntu?
That is a chilling implication. I mean, if the architecture of our daily communication rewards us for diminishing others, it is actively training us to diminish our own humanity. It is systemic, algorithmic isolation.
Which makes the challenge for you even more urgent. In a world, and specifically on an internet, that is designed to fracture us into isolated drops, how can you change your own daily habits to intentionally build others up? How can you purposefully practice Ubuntu today, even in the smallest interactions?
A vital question for a world that desperately needs an answer.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the profound connections that bind us together. Keep exploring those connections, challenge the systems that try to isolate you, and we will see you next time.